now, the 2009 Legacy inductees into the Georgia Radio Hall of Fame.
In 1928, by the age of 18, Richland, Georgia native Marcus Bartlett was already a piano prodigy and a member of an Atlanta dance band which performed on the late-night WSB Radio Owls program. He fell into radio, as he described it, when, in 1930, Lambton Kay hired Marcus to host Bookhouse Storytime, a nightly program on WSB. He would play the piano as he read bedtime stories to listeners. During a newspaper strike in Atlanta, Bartlett took on the personality of Uncle Mark, reading the comics on the air. When WSB began to broadcast college football, Bartlett did play-by-play for both UGA and Georgia Tech. When World War II broke out, Marcus joined the Navy and was stationed in Jacksonville. That's where he met his future wife and mother of his 5 children. After the war, he returned to Atlanta and WSB Radio and moved into management, hiring familiar names like 2007 Georgia Radio Hall of Fame inductee Elmo Ellis, Lee Jordan, Mike McDougald, George Crumley, and Bob Watson. In 1948, when WSB entered television, Bartlett helped develop many programs. One, The Popeye Club, was hosted by 2007 Georgia Radio Hall of Fame inductee Don Kennedy. Marcus retired from Cox Broadcasting in 1975, became a visiting professor at the University of Georgia, and worked as a travel consultant. He was a biblical scholar and was organist at several churches. Marcus Bartlett was the recipient of Di Gamma Kappa's Georgia Pioneer Broadcaster Award, the Board of Governors Emmy Award, and recognized by the Georgia House of Representatives for his invaluable contribution to the music and arts culture of the South.
This is Marcus Bartlett with the Johnson Sisters and Walter Herbert serenading you from our studios atop the Biltmore Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia.
Born in 1942, Sampson, Alabama native Bob Carr served in the Air Force, then got into radio at WGBA. After college, Bob moved to Atlanta, where he worked at WSB and WGST. While WQXI-FM was still automated, he was hired as the nameless morning jock. In the spring of 1973, he became friends with WQXI-AM morning jock Gary McKee. What started as a friendly off-air banter between the two developed into Carr doing character bits on McKee's morning show. Carr became known as the building security man, Willis the Guard Caswell, a redneck with an attitude. Bob Carr was part of the morning show for a decade and a half. He co-hosted the Atlanta Muscular Dystrophy Labor Day Telethon from 1978 until 1988 and was given a Lifetime Achievement Award from MDA. He was president of the Atlanta chapter of the Grammy Parent Organization, a member of the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences from 1982 until 1983, and the state of Georgia honored Carr with its Outstanding Georgia Citizen Award in 1984.
It was the night before Christmas, and all through my brain danced football, thoughts of the upcoming game. My team colors were hung by the television set, in hopes they'd make it to the Super Bowl yet. When out on the street there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. And what do my wondering eyes should be seen but Howard Cosell in a black limousine.
A native of Akron, Ohio, Alfred Joseph Seraldo became a sports whiz kid and won numerous trivia contests that culminated when, at 15, his entry earned him 3 innings of play-by-play work with Bill Griffiths on WJW calling Akron Yankees baseball. At the urging of legendary sportscaster Red Barber, Seraldo enrolled at the University of Florida to study broadcast journalism. Upon graduation in 1948, he moved to Atlanta to start a dual career as an account executive selling radio advertising along with play-by-play sportscasting. He called UGA basketball for WBGE in 1949, along with Decatur High School football on WGLS. In 1954, he was hired by WGST to call Georgia Tech football and basketball games. It would become an amazing 43-year career that would see the Yellow Jackets win SEC and ACC championships, participate in 16 bowl games in football, 11 NCAA tournaments in basketball, climaxing in 1990 with a trip to the Final Four and a national championship. Along the way, his expressions became famous among Tech fans. At kickoff, it was toe meets leather. If the score was tightening, it was hang on, brothers and sisters, we have a thriller brewing. Towards the end of a close game, the clock ticks. A quick, easy basket became a bunny shot, and a staccato good signaled a point made. His excitement for the game was infectious and transported his listeners to the best seats in the stadium. In 1992, Al retired from play-by-play work, but continued pre, post-game, and coaches' shows. He was inducted into the Georgia Tech Hall of Fame in 1986 and the National Broadcasting Hall of Fame in 1993. The radio booth at Bobby Dodd Stadium is named in his honor, and his banner hangs at Georgia Tech's Alexander Memorial Coliseum.
Tech 38, Virginia 38, 12 seconds on the clock. Scott Sisson, he's only a sophomore. Kid, a 6'2", 185-pounder out of Marietta. With that educated toe, let's see what he can do. It's a 37-yard field goal effort. Snap, touch, kick by Scott Sisson. It is high enough. It is good. Woo! 7 seconds on the clock.
Don Elliott Heald fell in love with radio while attending the University of Florida and working at the college station. He accepted a position at WRUF in Gainesville after graduation and stayed there until moving to Atlanta to do postgraduate work at Emory and work at WSB-AM as Don Elliott. He eventually moved to WSB Television, where he became vice president and general manager. Heald was the voice of the Autochron Time Weather Temperature Service. His voice was heard answering hundreds of calls daily from people wanting to know the correct time in cities throughout the United States and abroad. In May of 1955, Heald became the voice of WWV, Fort Collins, Colorado, the radio station that broadcasts the National Time Standard. He was also the host of
The Protestant Hour,
a syndicated radio program of an association of denominations for 50 years. Every year, he also provided the voiceover for the live Christmas Eve broadcast from the Cathedral of St. Philip. Heald was chairman of the American Cancer Society. In 1987, he was instrumental in moving the charity's headquarters from New York City to Atlanta.
I'm Don Elliott Heald. Good night, and may the peace of Christ be with us all.
Bill Hoger began his radio career as an occasional caller to 2007 Georgia Radio Hall of Fame inductee Ludlow Porch's program. He became one of Ludlow's favorite callers. He then turned his attention to the WKLS morning show, where he became a semi-regular caller and in-studio guest, performing as Elvis, along with a new character called Baby Ruth. In 1985, he teamed up with Jerry Buckner to work on the Stonewall Jackson Afternoon Drive show at Y106, doing fresh comedy that included Vegas Vice, an ongoing parody of Miami Vice, which featured Elvis and partner Liberace working the streets of Las Vegas. By 1989, the two signed on as regulars with Randy and Spiff at Fox 97 and began what would become a 16-year run, featuring a host of funny characters, including Ed the Mechanic, Gramps, Muhammad the convenience store clerk, and Sylvester Seidel of Seidel & Sons Funeral Home. Hoger and Buckner syndicated their comedy service to other radio stations and made a guest appearance on the television series partially filmed in Georgia, In the Heat of the Night, starring Carol O'Connor. Bill can still be heard on Waffle House jukeboxes as Bill the King Hoger. He won the Air Award for Best Bit in 1999, Best Commercial Parody and Best Character in 2001, and Best Character in 2004.
This is Sylvester Seidel of Seidel & Sons Funeral Home on Main Street in downtown Swanee.
Good morning, boys and girls, and thank you for calling Ranger Bud's Wilderness Hotline.
Born in 1916 in Moline, Illinois, Howard Randolph Holder began his career in 1939 at WHBF in Rock Island, Illinois. 2 years later, he married Clemente Lacey Baker and entered the Army. On February 19, 1942, Holder was captured by the Germans and was a prisoner of war for 2 years. He tried to escape 3 times, and then on the 4th attempt, he succeeded, walking from the Polish corridor to Russia. From there, he hitchhiked on wagons, trains, and trucks to Naples, Italy. Holder wrote about his experience in his book, Escape to Russia, and was awarded the Bronze Star with a V for Valor for his bravery and enterprise. Holder served in the Army Reserve for 23 years. Upon coming home, he returned to radio in Davenport, Iowa at WOC and WINN in Louisville, Kentucky, eventually moving to Athens in 1948 to become news director and part owner of WRFC in Athens, where he and Clemente raised 3 daughters and a son. In 1956, he became president of Clark Broadcasting Corporation, licensee of WGAU and WNGC-FM in Athens, WLAC in Rome, and WGRI in Griffin. In 1986, Clark expanded into California, eventually owning 7 stations in 2 markets. Holder was a consummate newsman, working on the front lines, gathering, writing, and delivering local news, the foundation of WGAU's programming, which was twice named Station of the Year. He was a champion of civic causes, giving much of his time to community organizations, including the Rotary Club, the Salvation Army, and the Boy Scouts, and served on the boards of countless foundations and committees. Holder was also very active in national and local radio associations, serving as a charter member of the advisory board of the Henry W. Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication. He was president of the Georgia Association of Broadcasters, a member of the National Board of Directors of the Associated Press Broadcasters, and several political action committees. His awards and recognition fill pages and include being named as the first ever GAB Broadcaster Citizen of the Year, twice winner of UGA's Di Gamma Kappa Pioneer Broadcaster Award, and was inducted into the GAB Hall of Fame in 1993.
It's a lovely day to be in Athens.
Listeners in Athens remember his words each day.
Keep smiling until 10 o'clock, and the rest of the day will take care of itself.
Mike Cavanaugh's radio career began in 1967 at a small station in western Massachusetts, WSBS, where he was a high school sports reporter. Later, while attending college, Mike worked at WHYN in Springfield. After graduating in 1972, Mike joined WLEE in Richmond, Virginia. In 1976, Mike came to WSB in Atlanta for a year, then left to cover the Carter administration as a reporter for the Metro Media Radio Network and its Washington flagship, WASH-FM. In 1981, he became a network anchor for the RKO radio networks in New York. In 1984, he returned to Atlanta to become news director and then operations manager for WCNN. He also worked at the CNN radio network. In 1990, Mike returned to WSB Radio, where he would go on to spend most of his radio career as a news anchor and talk show host. In 1992, Mike won the Edward R. Murrow Award for investigative reporting. In 2006, he left WSB in a full-time capacity to enter the world of investments and continued to host Money Matters and wrote a book on investing. Mike was involved in many civic and charitable groups, was a founding board member of the Georgia Radio Hall of Fame, and created a website devoted to the history of WSB Radio. It was Mike's wish that the site be perpetuated after his death, and today, per his request, is owned and maintained by the Georgia Radio Hall of Fame. Mike's antique radio collection was donated to the Georgia Radio Hall of Fame by his wife, Grace. A native of Canton, Georgia, Charles Alfred McClure received a bachelor's degree in journalism at the University of Georgia. During World War II, he enlisted in the Army Air Corps Aviation Cadet Program, became a pilot, flew 49 combat missions in the China, Burma, India theater as part of the 409th Bomb Squadron, and was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, as well as the Air Force Medal with Cluster, and was a lifelong member of the Air Force Reserves. Returning to Athens after the war, he founded the Athens Daily News and was the owner of WRFC-AM. In 1953, he moved his family to Columbus and purchased WGBA-AM. Over the next 4 decades, McClure Broadcasting and Cherokee Broadcasting owned and operated stations in Columbus, Canton, Ellijay, and Athens. McClure was a hands-on owner-operator and was well known in Columbus for his conservative emphasis commentaries, which aired on WRCG. He also insisted that the station carry the Metropolitan Opera live on Saturday afternoons, regardless of what might also be on at that hour, including UGA football or the Atlanta Braves. The games would be aired on tape delay, much to the dismay of many fans. Chuck McClure was active in community affairs, a private pilot, and a lifelong tennis player. In 1992, he was a Georgia District Seniors finalist. Chuck McClure and his wife Dorothy were instrumental in the campaign to save the historic Springer Opera House in Columbus.